Evening, people. How are we? Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, and another chat. And this one, I'm really, really looking forward to. Anybody that doesn't know Paddy McCourt needs to wise up. They need to go into YouTube and just type in his name as soon as they can and just enjoy everything that it has to offer because an unbelievable footballer, a great lad as well. But this is one that I've been really looking forward to. To be fair, I've enjoyed every one of them. They've been absolutely brilliant. All the boys with their time have been great. But Paddy McCourt is a maverick that everybody wants to hear from and hear about. And here he is now. I think now, 1 second, that's not him. Kashi, you helped us get this one, so fair play to you. And feel free to text in. But we're just waiting for him to join now. A couple of minutes. Here he is. And we'll get moving. But 1 second now, we join us. A maverick and a genius. The Irish Maradona. You're right, lads. I couldn't have put it better myself, but we're just waiting for him to come in now. And I hope his Wi-Fi holds up as well, up in Donegal. Paddy, how are you?
Not too bad, but how's things?
It's a battle of the beards tonight, it is.
Honestly, hey, I've had some bad beards and some bad haircuts, but this tops it off. You have to ask for a live video chat.
Well, never mind the chat about football. I think the first thing we're going to talk about is, will you let your kids cut your hair? Will you have a home haircut or will you hang on?
I haven't even got anything that would cut my hair away, as you can probably see here, else I probably would have let them by now.
It looks like you're just out of the shower. It's all shampooed and everything it is, Paddy.
Just back a walk there, nice wee breezes ran through it there for about 20 minutes, so looking not too bad.
Very good. And the beard is fairly long as well.
It's been longer, but I could definitely do a trim, but you know.
Yeah.
And
I've never had it as this long, but the whole lockdown thing as well, I've been growing it myself the last few weeks.
You need to watch the windows and get up though, might blow it off.
It's going grey and everything it is, Paddy. But it's good to see you anyway. How's things?
Not too bad. I suppose, like everyone else, a bit, a bit concerned with what's going on, and as we spoke about briefly today on the phone, I think the main concern for everyone is the not knowing how long this is going to go on for, and if we had a sort of definitive date to aim towards, I think people would sort of get their heads around it and just aim towards that. But the uncertainty of it all and the not knowing, I think, is concerning a lot of people, and myself included.
That's the one thing, yeah, that even from speaking to all the lads on this, Paddy, and even just from chatting to people and family and stuff, it's the uncertainty of it all. As you said, if we had a target to aim towards, I think people could maybe knuckle down a bit better and just say, look, this is what we need to aim towards and go for it. Hopefully on the 5th of May to start loosening restrictions. Obviously we don't know, but from our point of view involved in the football as well, just not knowing when it's going to come back. And how difficult has it been, I suppose, Paddy, you're involved with Derry City, as we know, on the coaching staff and with Declan. How hard has it been to just keep the lads motivated and occupied and just to keep active?
Well, I know Declan, Declan has been in touch with the players on a regular basis. They've all got their obviously their fitness programs and their GPSs, so our sort of sports science team can keep on top of all that and make sure they're getting their work on. But football's one thing, but when I was talking earlier, I was more talking just a general thing, in terms of everyone. I think everyone would like to sooner or later trying to get back to some kind of normality. Now, everyone has to do it when it's safe, and it'll be up to the authorities to let us know when that is. But on the football side of things, we've tried to keep a regular contact. As I say, they've got all the equipment to keep fit, and I'm sure everyone, fans included, are hoping that we do get back to it sooner rather than later.
Now we're around the same age, Paddy, and we're still fairly young. I wouldn't have people calling us old, but imagine this lockdown happened 15 years ago and trying to keep players fit and active.
Trying to keep them in the house would be hard enough, me certainly. But no, look, it's unprecedented times. It's really strange, there's days I feel anyway personally. There's days that it actually feels okay, and you're sort of getting on with it, and then there's other days where you wake up and it sort of knocks you for six a wee bit. It's sort of Groundhog Day, and you're doing the same thing over and over. So, the main thing is that I try and do is just to try and keep myself um, mentally switched on. That it's not going to last forever, and as you say, just give yourself a date to aim for, hopefully, and hopefully that might be the 5th of May now.
Okay, Paddy, the idea behind these chats was to try and keep people's spirits up and stuff, and we're having a bit of fun, a bit of crack. So less of that kind of doom and gloom stuff, and let's go back to your amazing career. And before, I suppose, before we get to the Celtic stuff and the Derry City stuff and all that, we're going to go right back to the start. And you started off with Foyle Harps and went to Rochdale from there, Paddy. But just, I suppose, what was intriguing for me and what I wanted to kind of ask you about was, how come you ended up going to a 3rd division team in Rochdale? As a young fella, was there not more kind of interest in you maybe going to clubs at a higher level than Rochdale?
Oh, it's a funny story actually. The manager of Foyle Harps at the time, there was 2 teams in Derry, one called Murfield and one called Foyle Harps, and Murfield was sort of from the Gale area, and Foyle Harps was the team from Shantallow, where I was from. And a couple of years before, the 2 clubs merged and they won. And the manager of Murfield at the time, a guy called Matt Bradley, was just doing a bit of scouting for Rochdale of all teams, and he sent me over for a trial, and I went over and back 2 or 3 times. And if the truth be told, no, there wasn't other interest from bigger clubs. I'd been to Peterborough and I'd been to Tranmere a couple of years previous, but nothing came out of them two trials. So Rochdale was the only sort of option I had, and that's why ultimately that's where I choose to go.
And to think that, I suppose, the career that you went on to have and how good you were, Paddy, and technically how good you were, was that not the case? Like, as a young fella, were you obviously very good as a teenager, or was that something that developed as the older you got, the better you got?
It's definitely a case of the older I got, the better I got. I could name me countless players who, at maybe 12, 13 years of age, were miles ahead of me, even in our own sort of area and district youth league, who, went on to have, I suppose, different careers in the game. Some went on to maybe have good Irish League careers, some went on not to play any senior football at all. So, from my own case, I was more of a late developer. So when I hit the sort of 15, 16, 17 age, I think my body grew a bit stronger. I got a bit, quicker, and that seemed to be then where I started to push on, where maybe others were coming to the end of their sort of development.
Sometimes as well, though, there can be a positive in that, Paddy, in the sense that I often speak to lads, myself included. You can go to the very highest level. It can be very hard to break through, very hard to get your chance. The fact that you went to Rochdale, obviously you were giving yourself a chance and a realistic chance of coming through the first team. And I think you made your debut at 17, which was obviously a massive point for you. And then to go on and have the career that you had. But I suppose the experience you gained so young, playing at a difficult level in the 3rd division, I suppose, that time. How much did that stand you in good stead for everything that came after?
It was very tough. The whole process was tough. I'm the youngest of 6 in the house, and I was obviously, being the youngest, I was very close to my mother. So, leaving the house at 16 to go to no disrespect, but it's hardly a glamorous club, Rochdale. So it really was a case that I didn't really have any other options, and I wasn't really a big fan of education. So it was one of these ones that it was a sink or swim kind of situation, and I had to take a chance. And as you say, the other side of that, and I suppose the side that I benefited from, was when you go to a club of that stature, then the level's not as high. Yourself went to Sheffield Wednesday, who were in the Premier League at the time. Obviously, probably a team full of internationals. You're trying to break in there. It's very difficult. I didn't have that obstacle. I had sort of senior, seasoned League Two pros to try and get in ahead of. So with as I say, the bit of ability that I had, plus getting stronger over, them sort of later team, I sort of knew very quickly that I was much better than most of them. So, once I got into the team, it was I ended up getting, I think I played 95 or 100 games there over the three and a
Yeah,
half.
because I think over the 4 or 5 years that you were there, but just because you were so good technically, I suppose everybody talks about the lower divisions that you go, that it's more physical and a lot stronger. So I suppose in terms of you, that probably helped bring you on, developed you as well physically, because the talent was always there and the ability, which would always be there. But just as you said, playing against senior pros, tough, hard fellas, week in, week out, that must have stood you in good stead.
It did, and not just on the Saturday, because you were training and playing with
Training
these
as well,
boys
yeah.
all week as well. And it was I sort of went. It was 2001 when I went to Rochdale, so it was sort of the tail end of, so to speak, of the old school generation. So they were still really hard on you. We were still cleaning boots. We were still, at Christmas time, you probably done it as well. You had to get up and sing or
Singing
dance
and
with the
everything, yeah.
boys. So all that stuff was character building. Now, it was
Mm.
absolutely horrible to do at the time, if you can remember. You were nervous for a week leading up to it. But
Mm.
I suppose when you look back now, it was all character building, and it certainly helped me get over certain issues that I had, like homesickness. And then once you get into the team, you start getting recognised around the town, and all that stuff makes it slightly easier. But the problem
It's
I had, I was getting recognised too much in the town, and they started writing me up.
yeah, we talk about the town later on, Paddy, but I suppose just on that as well, that's something, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something I speak to my own friends about or people who would know me, but an awful lot of people from the outside just don't get the whole homesickness thing. And all the lads that I've spoken to here who have gone away like that 15, 16, 17, we had Andy Reid on the other night and he went away 14. It's a major issue for lads. As you says, you were the youngest of six in the family. It was tough to leave your mum. I struggled the first year really bad as well. And it can be a really, really hard thing to get over.
I found it tough. I'll be honest with you. I was at Rochdale 4 years, and I don't know if I ever got over it.
Okay.
See, when I used to come back home, whether it be for a long weekend or 4 or 5 days, I was devastated going back.
Yeah.
Now you sort of train your mind. They say, look, this is your career, you have to do it. But see, if someone had said to me there and then on that Sunday night when I had to get the flight back to Manchester, listen, you can stay, I would have never went back. And again, I think it's just the closeness of the family that I had around me, and obviously you're young and your mates and all that as well. I don't know how you felt, but I always felt that you were missing something. I always
Yeah.
felt that I was missing a family party, a christening, a wedding. You always felt like you were the one out. But it was again going back to character building. They stick it out for 4 years, and it definitely has helped me in the long run. In certain different things that I've done, not just football.
Yeah, so it was, as you say, Paddy, it was a good time for you initially, early. It tailed off then, and I suppose there was a bit of interest from other places. What surprised me, though, was the fact that, because you made your international debut as well in 2002, so things were going really well for you. What surprised me is the fact that, and I suppose this is the question I'd put to you, that how come you didn't stay in England at the time, even though there was a bit of interest, or could you have gone elsewhere? The fact that you ended up coming back to Shamrock Rovers.
It was probably to do with, as I say, probably a bit of homesickness as well, probably a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Probably a wee bit of, I'd lost a bit of confidence, as you say, it didn't end well at Rochdale after starting really well, and it was sort of a gradual climb, and then all of a sudden it went downhill. So probably just to get a bit of home comfort, come back home. Although I was living in Dublin, I was getting up to the house every Saturday morning, and sometimes not coming back down to the Monday. All the weekends you stayed down, but it was very much flexible that I was getting home a lot, and it was probably to do with that. And even I think about 5 or 6 months into the Rovers, obviously they'd well documented money trouble, so
Yeah.
we were all free transfers, so to speak, and I had a couple of options to go back then to a couple of SPL clubs, and and I chose not to because I just didn't feel that the time was right, and I ended up going back and signing for Derry then.
Yeah, and I suppose before we get to the Derry thing, it was Roddy who brought you back and signed. And we all know Roddy's a colourful character, as you said there as well. It was difficult times at Shamrock Rovers because they were going through the financial troubles. But for you personally and for yourself, you were absolutely flying. I think you scored 7 goals in something like 17 games. You ended up winning the Young Player of the Year award. I was playing in the league at the time, and some of the goals you were scoring, and all of a sudden it was like, who's this Paddy McCourt fella? So for you, was that, I suppose, Paddy, it was like kick-starting your career all over again?
It was, and to be honest, it was exactly what I needed at the time. Roddy was great for me, and I know he defies opinion in terms of League of Ireland football. He's a great success at some clubs and not so successful at others. So, but I can only speak on a personal level, and at the time he was brilliant for me. He told me what I wanted to do when I met him. He flew over, and then I actually came to Dublin and met him in his house about, he just wanted me to get back and join football. He wanted me to play in that number 10 role. Gave me all the big plans about the stadium and all that obviously never came to fruition because obviously the money ran out and whatever. But no, I have to say now, in terms of a football sense, he was brilliant for me, and he stuck to his word the best he could, so to speak. Obviously when the money went, it was a bit of a tough time for everyone. We weren't getting paid, and then when they went into administration, that was the only time we started getting paid actually, because obviously the administrator takes on the contracts. But no, it was a strange time, but I have to say, I met some great people there, and we had some great fun off the pitch. There was four or five of us living in a house in Dublin, and any weekend that I didn't go back, we socialised in the city, and it was a brilliant 6 months. And as I say, probably just exactly what I needed after the way it sort of ended at Rochdale.
I could only imagine the things Roddy was telling you to get you to sign.
Oh,
but in fairness to him, Paddy, as you said, he was getting the best out of you. There's Mark Kenny texting in sometimes, and Mark was obviously involved as well.
Mark was there.
Stephen
He
Goff,
was never allowed out though.
He which?
He was never allowed out though. He make him out all the time.
He's still not allowed out. The only time I see him now is out kicking ball with the young fella MJ in the garden.
Oh, he's brilliant with the videos.
Brilliant with the videos, yeah. And his young fella's going to be some player as well, I think. But yeah, it was great times, and there was good fellas. Even though there was stuff going on off the pitch, I'm sure that close in the dressing room, you had great characters in the dressing room, Paddy, as well. But when the chance arose, I suppose, you mentioned there was interest from others across the water. But was that just the case of once you heard Derry were interested, you just wanted to go home then?
No, I don't think it was just a case of as straightforward as that. It was just I wasn't ready to go back across to England. I'd only been back 5 months. I suppose the memories of how it ended there, and the not being on the team and not really being bothered. To be honest, if I was in the team, probably the first time ever in my career that I'd probably just had enough of being away from home. I spoke to a lot of managers at the time. I spoke to Paul Dolan, who was at Drogheda. I spoke to, I think, Pat was either at Shelburne or
would have been at Shells at that time, yeah.
And both of them, to be honest with you, offered me a lot more money than what Stephen did at Derry. But the lure of getting back home, I suppose, and obviously getting to work with Stephen, who, if the truth be told, at the time I didn't know how good a manager he was going to be or whatever, but he had this good feeling about him, and again, similar to Roddy, he told me everything that I wanted to hear in terms of his plans for me on the football side, and that's why I chose to go to Derry.
Did you ever feel, Paddy, I suppose it's easy looking back now and we all know the career you had and how good you were, but did you ever feel at that stage after coming back from England, because some people then you have the opportunity to go straight back and people jump at it because they might think, oh, my chance might not come again. But you were strong enough in your mind to think you weren't ready and you were happy to stay here for another year or two and then possibly go back if things went well at Derry.
There was 2 reasons for it, really. I suppose when I did come back, I did genuinely believe that I would try and get back across at some point.
Okay.
But I was also aware that if I'd done that too early and I failed again, then that would be hit.
Okay.
So as I say, I enjoyed the 5 months, the less pressure, being at Shamrock Rovers, playing in that sort of number 10 role. We had actually really good players that you
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
can remember, but I think with everything going on off the pitch with the finances, the uncertainty with the stadium, we ended up fighting relegation that year, and I ended up leaving halfway through, and Jason Gavin and that ended up going to Drogheda. So, they lost most of their sort of better players, so to speak. And no, so that was the reasoning behind that. I wasn't mentally ready to give it another go.
Even though you were there with Shamrock Rovers with them characters, and you says you had a lot of good crack and nights out, they didn't scramble your brain anyway, because that's a wise move, Paddy, to make, or to that, because I say it, so many young lads would have just jumped again, dived in, kind of blinded by the fact that Lower were going back to England. But the fact that you were strong enough in your own mind and you knew that, and it probably paid dividends for you then to go on and have the career that you had, because as you said, if you were to go back that time too early and fail, you might not ever get the chance again.
I don't think it was. I'm not sitting here saying it was all so well thought the way I'm saying it to you, but it was definitely, a conscious decision not to go back, because I knew it wouldn't. I knew it wouldn't have stayed. As I say, it was only 5 months previous that I came back. Probably the 8 to 9 months before that, I hated every minute of being there. So all them feelings were still fresh in my mind. So
Yeah.
it was more of a feeling that, do you know what, I'm not going back to that again, because if I get back into that place where I was, I'll only be sent home anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So then you moved to Derry, Paddy. Obviously, Stephen's the manager. That's where you go and you sign. Was there ever a fear of going back, that there might be distractions going back home to Derry, or were you mad like to get back and obviously living with your family, but to play with your hometown club as well?
No, that was a big fear. That's why, to be honest, that's why I chose to sign for Shamrock Rovers before, because Derry had wanted me at that stage as well, and I thought, no, you know, I think where I was in my life at that time, signing for Derry wouldn't have been the right thing to do at that time.
Okay.
I wasn't really in a place where my career wasn't of any great focus at the time. So coming back and seeing friends and having a lot of people around you who would be going out and doing whatever, maybe midweek as well. It would have been probably something that I'd have been easy drawn into. So I definitely took a conscious decision not to sign for him at the start of the season, but the chance came again, I was ready to give it a go.
And I suppose on that stuff as well, Paddy, you're mentioning there that your mind wasn't ready, I suppose, and stuff like that, and your head wasn't focused on the football side of things. At what stage, because I had something similar as well, in the sense that I never knew what it took to be a professional footballer until I came back and actually signed with Shells and Pa Fenlon, and how professional it was. And that was, I was 21, I think. But for those years when you're away, you're so young, it's very, very hard to realise exactly what it takes. It's easy now looking back, knowing the things you should have been doing and in the gym and looking after yourself and all that. At what stage for you did you feel as though the penny dropped with you that, look, I need to dedicate myself to this in terms of the way I was living and the professional? And did that come at Derry under Stephen?
It certainly improved, but if I'm going to be completely honest, then I could look back at my whole career and say loads of stuff I could have done better. You
Okay.
know, the likes of the recovery after games and all, I hated all that, so I wouldn't do it. I should have been much better at taking protein drinks. Going in for a rub the next day. You can ask any club out. The masseur would be lucky to see me once a season. You
Okay.
know, I'd just be in. If the ice baths were compulsory, I would get into them. If they weren't, I wouldn't get into them. It was just.
And was that not something, Paddy, I suppose, the higher up that, and we'll get to the Celtic, but the higher up you went and playing at that level and the players and the managers you were dealing with, was that not something that they were kind of down on you about, or was that your own responsibility?
All stuff like that's always, especially the higher you go, it's all your own responsibility.
Okay.
From my time at Celtic, if you take away pre-season, even all the gym sessions during the season, they were all put on if you wanted to do it. There was never a, right, we're in the gym at 1:30.
Mm.
the strength and conditioning coach would come in to the canteen, the boys would be having their lunch, and he would say, right, I've put a strength session up on the board, or I've put, do it if you want, and he would just go around and monitor it. But I can't remember many sessions where he had to be in the gym at 1:30, that type of way. It was very much left to your devices. And I think the club knew at that stage that the lads there were all such good professionals that most of them would do it anyway. But and it's something that I think works. It's if you get the right group of lads and you get the right group of professionals, I think if they have that freedom where they're not getting told to do something all the time, then they seem to respond in a different way, and they want to go and do it anyway. And then I suppose if there's a day where one of the lads had something on and he can't make it, it gives him that freedom to go ahead and do what he does, and he's not having to go and ask for a day off. But again, these players were top international players, elite level players. So in terms of recovery, preparing for a game, these were all masters at it.
Okay, we'll come back to the Celtic stuff because I really want to talk to you about all that, Paddy. But I suppose the years with Derry, and it was a funny one because Stephen signed you, but then he left. And that year where you had, I think, Pat in charge, you had Peter Hutton, you had John Robertson, that must have been a strange time with such a turnover of the managers, but yet you remained successful throughout.
Well, it was because I think when Stephen left, I think everyone took it really badly. I think he had us all in such a place where we just idolised him so much. We were playing great football. We had obviously the highs of Europe, and I suppose we all felt really disappointed. And I suppose in a selfish way, when you look back now, we couldn't see it that it was a career step. I felt personally abandoned a wee bit because, he had worked so hard to get me to a club over probably a period of 6 or 7 months. And, I know by speaking to him now that if he had got the choice, he would have taken me to Dunfermline. But I remember at the time, I think we just had our first child and, we just bought our first house. So at the time I was quite settled. So I'm not even sure if I would have went to Dunfermline. And, having that disappointment of losing a manager that we all really respected and looked up to, I think whoever came on next, it was always going to be hard. And, Pat Fenlon's obviously a brilliant manager and a great fella as well. But I think he found it difficult coming on under Stephen. And, he tried to bring in a few of the lads that he'd worked with before from Shelburne and all, but whatever happened, it just didn't quite click,
And I suppose Stephen's the one I want to focus on because back then, Paddy, that was probably the first time that he came to everyone's prominence because he was so successful. The team that he was building at Derry, things were going really well for you. Everybody knows now what he's gone on to achieve with Dundalk, and he's the international manager now, which is brilliant. But what was it that made him so special back then? And what was it that, I suppose, for you, stood out with you kind of amongst all the other lads and in the dressing room with him?
It's a difficult question. It's one that I've been asked many times, and I still struggle to answer it with any great information about him. He's just a manager where, first of all, he's brilliant at spotting a good player. He's unbelievable at taking a player out of a team that maybe doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and all of a sudden he does something with him over a period of time, and this player becomes a top player. So, but he's also he's very forthcoming in his praise. As a team and individually, he certainly made me feel like I was the best player in the world when I was playing for him. When I went out there playing for him, because he told me every day. He told me every day how good I was. How good I was going to be on the Friday night, how bad the player was I was going to be playing against, and he was just brilliant manager, and he was, as I say, he was very, very good when he was giving out praise. He never felt that it was just said for the sake of it. Everything he said, he really felt that he meant it.
It's amazing, really, because, and obviously you're heavily involved in the coaching now, and you see the way the game has evolved with coaching, and there's so much emphasis on it now, which obviously plays a big part. But everybody I've spoken on here, all the players who've played at all different levels, and I've said it 2 or 3 times already, the amount of them that come back to the man management and how good a manager treats you, respects you, as you says, the belief he's given you, the way he looks after you, so much of it still comes back to that, regardless of all the other stuff that people go on about now.
But I think anybody, when you've been involved in football your whole adult life as well, anybody that's been involved in any level, senior level, junior level, intermediate level, if you have a manager that treats you right, and you have a manager who, you know, treats you in a way that you want to really go out on a Saturday or a Friday night and play for him, then he's going to get that extra 10%. Now, if that manager also has the ability to go and sign good players and also has the ability to create a winning mentality within a group of people, then that manager is going to be a really top manager. Because they've got the human side of it where they like to treat people well. They then get the eye to go and sign a good player, and then they've got, I suppose, the skills to create a group, a team environment. And that's why you see the likes of Michael O'Neill, Stephen Kenny, who have been successful, working with top players because they've got all them things mixed in together.
It's a great description, and it's the perfect one really to paint for Stephen, because we all know him now and what he's got on to, but they're all the qualities that he possesses, which is why he is where he is, as you says, Michael, as well. And we'll get to him, playing under him. I had a little bit of time doing some stuff with the punditry with Michael, but straight away he just draws you in, and even from speaking to lads who were under him at Shamrock Rovers during the European stuff, they just rave about how good he was as well. But I suppose the move then comes, Paddy. Stephen did come back, but Celtic come calling. But I think West Brom were in the mix as well. And is it true the club left it up to yourself?
Derry, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think both offers were accepted, and they were both the same. I think they were both the same, or in and around similar. I think Celtic had offered a friendly as well, which, I don't know if that was part of the deal. They add up the extra money, or was that on top of the money that West Brom had agreed to pay. So, no, once that was agreed with the club, then it was definitely my choice after that.
And I suppose from a boy who supported Celtic and where you're from and all that stuff, Paddy, as well, like when you heard Celtic were interested, like how did that make you feel, I suppose, and the buzz it must have given you? Obviously, we all knew you were very, very good at that stage, but to have Celtic come calling must have been a major, major boost to you.
It was, and it was a big shock, really, because the West Brom interest I'd known about for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I knew they'd been to watch me 4 or 5 times. The agent who was working with at the time was quite close with Tony Mowbray, so I was getting feedback all the time. Listen, they're really keen. You've done well. I think they're going to put a bid on. So I was kept up to date the whole time, and in my head, it was only West Brom in the race, and it was very, very last minute when Celtic came in. So big shock, and obviously, as you say, I was ecstatic and delighted. But also, I remember being very nervous, and I was very nervous of just worry about what if something goes wrong here, because I had now basically told West Brom that I was signing for Celtic. I was like away from Birmingham up to Glasgow, and I was I remember having this sense of panic that, if this goes wrong now, I don't know what I'll do.
Thankfully, going wrong in the sense of it falling through or something.
It was just probably something that I created in my own mind, this nervousness that, maybe if I fail a medical, or it was something that I created, or maybe if another player becomes available in my position before. It's probably stupid stuff now looking back, but I remember feeling that at that time, and I suppose I didn't really get excited about it until I got my medical done and I actually signed the contract, and I was just over the moon.
So you signed anyway, Paddy, and I think Gordon Strachan's the manager, and I was reading a quote today that he said that Paddy is as gifted a footballer as I've ever seen, which, coming from Gordon Strachan, is some hell of a compliment and quote. How did you find him when you first moved over?
He was very much Gordon's type of fella that you have to sort of win him over type of thing. He doesn't give his trust out easy. He's not going to just be nice to everyone. He's the type of fella where, if you come in and you're not going to be any use to him, which I wasn't going to be for at least the first 6 months, then, he'd be a hard man. Now, nice enough where he would chat to you if he seen you in the canteen, but there were certainly when you join a new club, you're expecting a manager to be up chatting to you, how's things not. There was certainly none of that in the early parts. Now, I've since now get on really well with him. I actually done a Q&A with him there a few weeks ago, and we're having great crack. But he's one that you have to win over, and you have to win his trust. And I think just towards the end of my first season, I was just starting to do that, and then he obviously left then in that summer.
And did you find, Paddy, I suppose, from your own motivation, every day you were nearly just trying to impress him and win him over, as you say, because you didn't feel that love straight away from him?
I probably was, and it was probably to my detriment because
Trying too hard.
I kept breaking down. I was really unfit when I went there. I'd been injured for a while at Derry, which West Brom had been fully aware of because, as I say, that was an ongoing process, and they would have probably put me on a program where I'd maybe take 8 to 10 weeks to get up to speed for what their level would be. But when I went to Celtic, I don't think they knew that I'd been injured, and it was sort of straight on the pre-season. And Gordon's pre-seasons are notoriously really difficult. So for me,
I presume you loved.
Aye. So I think I only lasted about 2 days, and I think I pulled my groin or my calf or something. And again, it was just because I was in really bad condition going into the pre-season.
I could imagine you in pre-season. The only time I see you run was when you have the ball.
I am the worst at pre-season at the best times, but being out for 3 or 4 months and then going straight into a pre-season was just an accident waiting to happen.
So for that first year, Paddy, I think you scored your first goal, was it against Falkirk, and then you had your first start against St Mirren. And as I mentioned at the start of the video here, the goals that you started to tally up then, it was almost like each goal was getting better and better in terms of the solo runs, the dribbling. But after getting your first start, I don't think you played again then for a while. Were you disappointed with that, or just how hard was it, I suppose, because they were so successful, the team they had, as you said, the players, top internationals, the step up from what you were coming from. How long did it take you just to actually grasp all that?
It was probably a year. I think under Gordon, I'd only made 5 sub appearances, so I didn't start any games that year. As I say, I'd been injured for most of it. It was really, really difficult to get up to speed. Had a break after the first year, come back. Gordon had obviously left, and Tony Mowbray came in. And had a good pre-season that year. Played, I don't know, many games, but probably the first time I felt like a proper first-team player, so to speak. And as you say, scored them goals in that second year, started getting recognised a bit more as a first-team player. And then, I think it was the season after that under Neil Lennon where I played 37 or 38 games. So, that was the season then that I probably became more of a regular.
And I suppose then you mentioned him there, Neil Lennon came in. Obviously, he's there now and very, very successful, but he was also very successful in that first period as well. I've met him a couple of times. He seems like a really, really good bloke. In terms of his management, how different was he to Strachan? And as you says there, the fact that you were playing 35, 36 games, he obviously liked you and rated you.
Well, Aidan had left that summer to go to Spartak Moscow, so that opened up a bit of a gap for me in that left-hand side.
How good was he, Paddy?
He was top player. He was a top player. The season before I came actually was the season where he won all the Player of the Years and all, and he was unplayable that year. The year I was there, the 2 years I was there with him, his form had maybe dipped a wee bit. He wasn't as good as he had been that previous year. Now, him and Gordon had a couple of fallouts. I don't know if that was to do with it. And, he found himself out of the team. Sean Maloney had come back. Nakamura was still there. So it was good competitions in them areas. But
serious players.
in terms of Aidan, he was a top player. He you only have to look at the career he's had and the amount of caps and appearances in the Premier League in England and also at Celtic.
So as you says, that kind of freed up the space on the left, and which was a help to you. And you need that bit of luck as well, though, Paddy. I suppose a player moves on, a manager moves on, a manager comes in that really likes you. As much as it's down to ability, you need that bit of luck as well to be in the right place at the right time.
You do, and I remember having a chat with Neil Lennon at the time, and he said, "Look, Aidan's moved on." He said, "I could go out now and sign someone, but I think I've got a replacement here." And again, it's back to that man management thing that made me feel 10 feet tall, and I think I'd played a good lot of games leading up to January that year. And then as Celtic are, they're a massive club, they obviously then want to strengthen the squad. And, Chris Cummins was brought on that January. And again, it was sort of back to having a battle of, that sort of, he played in that wide positions as well. So when you're at a club like that, there's always going to be competition. And, the 5 years I was there was no different.
And just, I suppose, everybody, I've never been to an Old Firm game. Obviously, I watched them here, and you watch games looking in from the outside. Everybody tells me how amazing they are, especially where you're from as well, and you supported Celtic. Like, just how amazing is the occasion, Paddy, to play in an Old Firm game? And I suppose people talk, I was listening to Stephen Gerrard was on Sky during the week, and we're asking him comparing it to the Merseyside derby. But he said the build-up to it is far more intense in Glasgow than what he found in Liverpool. As a player getting ready to play in one of them games, just like, how's your week leading up to it?
You can sense a difference when you're around the training ground for sure. It's like I suppose it's like when you're leading up to a cup final. There's a different feel about the training ground. There's a bit of nervousness about. No one wants to get injured, and you can sort of sense a bit of nervousness from the management staff because. No one wants to lose an Old Firm game, especially if it is a semi-final or a final or, something that might have a bearing on where the league goes at the end of the year. So high-pressure games, and when you're out and about as well, you can sense when people are up chatting to you, it's all they want to do is talk about the game at the weekend, and they would leave you with a "you better not get beat" type of no joke with a jag, but it means so much over there. They're being deadly serious, and I suppose as players and as staff, Neil Lennon, whoever it was, the manager, they sort of feel that burden on their shoulders because, if you lose one of them games, it affects people there for weeks. So it's a high pressure, and it's enjoyable after the game's over if you won, but it's very hard. It's very hard to enjoy the build up to the game because it is such a high pressure game.
On that as well, I suppose we spoke a little bit about the managers, the players that were there at the time, and you mentioned a couple of them there, signed Chris Commons, Sean Maloney, Nakamura, brilliant players. Was there any one or two players, Paddy, that kind of, when you went in first, because sometimes I find you have a view or a perception of a player, but then if you're lucky enough to maybe play with them, you see a completely different side and your respect for them goes up tenfold. Was there any player, I suppose, that blew you away that was maybe in your head you didn't think they were as good as they were, but you played with them then and you thought, wow, this fella's amazing?
Well, the one that springs to mind, especially in the first year, would have been Nakamura. He was, obviously being a fan, he's seen him and he was a good player and he had a lovely left foot. But when you actually train with him most days and watch him in training, and the one thing that I would have never noticed about him watching the games was he never ever give the ball away.
Okay.
And I always think that's a sign of a good player, whether you're a centre midfielder, whether you're a right back, whether you're a winger. If you keep possession of the ball all the time, it's very difficult to knock anyone like that. And when I started training and playing with him, his gameplay was brilliant. Take away the spectacular long range goals and his wand of a left foot. He never give the ball away. See, even when you were doing the possession games and all, he was always the best player. And I suppose he was the one that, to answer your question, if someone had asked me a year previous, well, I wouldn't have probably rated him so highly. But watching him day in day out of how he played was really high level.
There's someone texting in there as well about Scott Brown. I suppose you look at the influence he's had on Celtic and the dressing room over the years. You can't be a poor player if you've been there for that long, the captain and all. And just how influential is he, Paddy, around the place?
He's incredibly influential, and I think Brownie will probably only get the recognition he really deserves is after he leaves Celtic. And,
okay.
He's going to go down as one of the all-time great Celtic captains. I think he's been there. I think this is his 12th season now. So, I don't know if is it 8 or 9 or whatever many leagues he's got, and he's just an incredible person as well. He would do anything for anyone. And any success he had, he really does deserve it. And I'll be very proud to call him a friend when he finally does get the recognition. And I think his last game for Celtic, wherever it is, probably going to be at Celtic Park, is going to be an unbelievable occasion for him.
I suppose just jumping then to Paddy, your last game, and you were hugely successful. I think you won 2 leagues, 2 Scottish Cups. But I only realised today, I didn't know about it, that in the end of the Scottish Cup final against, was it Aberdeen, and obviously you were winning as well, or was it Hibs? But when you came on as sub, they gave you the captain's armband, which I thought was a lovely gesture as well. But it just goes to show, I suppose, the respect they had for you and how much they liked you around the place as well.
No, look, it was. I had numerous chats with Neil Lennon, and Peter Lawwell leading up to the end of my contract, and I had decided they move on then.
And was that just the case, Paddy? You just wanted to play more type thing?
It was, and it was a very difficult decision because, a club like Celtic, it's such a good club, and you could treat it so well. You could nearly stay there and not play, if that makes sense, because it's just an amazing place to be. And I'd been there for 5 years, and the family was settled and all there. So, the easiest thing to do would probably have been to stay for another year or two, and just sort of be a sub and keep sort of doing what I'd done for the last season. But I wanted to try my hand in England, especially down around the Championship where I had a bit of interest. And so going back to the thing, I'd spoke to Neil, and obviously the players had sort of knew just by chatting to them that I was moving on. And when I come on for the last 10 minutes or whatever, it was Joe Ledley who come over and gave me the armband, which, same as yourself, I thought it was a lovely thing to do. I think Joe just done it off his own bat. And
oh, you weren't aware of it beforehand, no?
No, I wasn't aware of it. No, I think
Okay.
it was, I don't know if maybe Lenny had told Joe or Brownie, whoever they do it, but I certainly wasn't aware of it. And as I say, it was a lovely gesture, and it's something that gives me great pride when I look back. The game was won. I think we were 3-0 up by the time I came on. But if someone had told me as a teenager that I would captain Celtic in a Scottish Cup final, even for 10 minutes, and it would have been a dream come true, which it was.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing, yeah, Paddy. And so then you did make the move, I suppose, to Barnsley in the Championship. You played a lot of games there. Then you went on loan to a few places. I suppose, was it just the case then, Paddy, at that stage you went, as I say, you went to Brighton, Notts County, Luton, you were around a few places. It was almost then you were getting ready to come home, and I suppose it was only a matter of time before you did return home.
I suppose I left Celtic at 28. I went to Barnsley, and I actually had a really good half season, but the team were struggling, and the manager lost his job. New manager come in. He wanted to go about it a different way of fighting relegation. I found myself sort of back on the bench, coming on as sub, and then I went to Brighton that summer. Again, Sammy Hapia was the manager. He brought me there. He resigned in November. New manager come in, Chris Hutton, who's an unbelievable fella, by the way, but he's very honest with me. And said at the time, I think Brighton were maybe only 3 or 4 points above the relegation zone, which was disappointing for them because they had hopes of getting promotion that year. So Chris had come on and said, look, I just need to consolidate and make sure we don't get relegated this year. And that brought the move on to Notts County. The problem with the move to Notts County was I was still living in Brighton, and I was commuting up and down, and after a couple of months it just wasn't working, and it was very, very difficult. And then when I went to Luton, I actually signed a 2-year contract at Luton. We had a disappointing first year, and unfortunately at the time my wife had a brain tumour and had a year left my contract, but I decided that after her operation and all, she couldn't drive. The best thing to do was to come back home then. So that sort of accelerated a year or two, but the plan was always to come home and out.
Yeah, so and now she's doing well now, Pat.
She's doing well now. She's doing great. We just had another baby here who's 7 months, so
brilliant.
Thankfully, all good.
Brilliant. So yeah, you went to Glenavon, but I want to talk about Finn Harps because obviously we're League of Ireland related, and of course everybody speaks about Ollie and the character that he is. But you seem to enjoy a couple of years there, Paddy. Yeah, seems to be obviously. I'm a fan of Ollie, even though sometimes people, I know he plays up to the press and he plays the game as such. But I love his work ethic because I'm at matches every weekend, and who floats in only Ollie to games you never even imagine he'd be at. But he seems to be a real infectious character.
He is. He's a brilliant football person. As you say, his work rate's
Yeah.
phenomenal. You know, with all the sort of modern technology now, and your Y Scout and your Instat, it'd be very easy if Longford were home to Shelburne on a Friday night and we played Longford the next Friday. You know, Ollie'd be down at that game if we didn't play until the Saturday night. You know, even though he could just as easily get the game streamed to him and he could watch it. You know, so stuff like that, he's exceptional. But I suppose in the role I'm in now, you have to do stuff like that. You know, you have to be at the games. You might see some on that Friday night where you're at the game live, we don't see on the video. You know, so you know a lot of managers do tend to like to go and try and get live games if they don't clash with their own fixtures. But in terms of a person, I loved him. You know, I obviously knew Paul Haggerty a long time when
Yeah.
Paul was an assistant, but I didn't know Ollie, to be honest. But no, I had 2 seasons there, and you know, one finished with a disappointment of getting relegated in our first year. But I was thankful then they sort of gave a bit back the next year, and we ended up getting promoted via the playoffs. So, you know, went out for Lemons and some kind of a high anyway.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what I love about him is he seems to be constantly fighting fires where he is in terms of the relegation battle or trying to get the club back up, and but yet he always puts on a positive face in terms of kind of the challenge that's there, the fact that he signed you as well. But yeah, he's a really good character. Just on the role that you're doing now, Paddy. So you went back to Derry City. I know you're involved with Decky and the coaching staff, but are you looking after all the youth stuff as well? And how is that going for you?
Well, when I first came in here, I came in as obviously head of the youth academy. Um, since probably the middle of last year, I took on a different role of technical director, which is, I suppose, over the general club. It's not just pigeonholed to the youth academy. So I'd be heavily involved with Declan in terms of recruitment and just the well-being of the whole club, I suppose. And you know, the academy would certainly fall under that as well.
And he enjoyed it, yeah. It seems to be going really well. Obviously, Declan had a very good year last year. You'd be hoping for more of the same this year as well. And I know Declan from obviously doing the bits on with the TV stuff. He seems like, well, I got on great with him anyway, really good. And he's very, very passionate as well, which obviously, for lads who are from Derry, he seems to be bringing that identity back and just what it means to play for Derry City.
He's a brilliant person. You know, he's done a super job since he's come back, and I suppose my main role in terms of being involved in the first team is to be a support network for him. I sort of just there to basically do whatever he wants me to do. If that's go watch a game with him, if that's to watch the opposition and give my take on what he should do on the Friday night, then basically whatever he asks me to do, I do. And you know, I suppose if we look at my role in the broader terms of the football club, our academy has now gone really well the last sort of 12 to 18 months. We've put a lot of work into that. We've brought extremely talented staff to the academy, Alexa Donald O'Brien, Sean Holmes, Neil McCafferty, Conor Luckery, Jared Boyle, all fellas that worked with Club NI in the past. So we've brought some really talented staff to the club, and Mark McChrystal, who's still playing, takes the under-13s team as well. So, you know, we're very fortunate that we have a group of staff there that's really enthusiastic about improving young players. You know, we've another coach, Maurice Mahan, who, you know, has coached at with junior teams throughout the city for a number of years, even though he's still relatively young. So, you know, we've been very fortunate that when I've went and met these people and tried to get them on board, that they've all believed in what we're trying to do. And you know, as I say, the academy it's all steady progress, but you know, we want to get it where we've got a supply line leading into the first team. You know, hopefully every year.
It's good to hear, Paddy, because a lot of people speak about the Shamrock Rovers stuff in the academy and they're doing great work. But sometimes I think other clubs get left out in that. I know Keith Long is doing great work with Kevin's at Bohemians and stuff like that as well. And and to hear yourselves and obviously the coaches there, a lot of those lads I would know from playing against as well. So the experience that they have and to pass on to the young lads. Because my experience at Derry is always the brilliant players that they've had. Anytime I went up to the Brandywell, going back to even Peter Hutton, Liam Coyle, all those players we would have played against, Eddie McCallum, then on to the batch. You were with Kevin Deary, yourself, Ciara Martin, Mark Farren, all the brilliant players. So I think it's brilliant what's happening in terms of the academy stuff and the supply line that you're hoping to provide for Declan, for the first team.
Well, that's it. I can only speak from my own experience, but the teams that I played on all had a real sort of local feel about them, so to speak. We all had with Peter Hutton and Sean Hargan, who were older, Eddie McCallum, myself, Barry Malloy, Rory Higgins, who's obviously from Limavady, and Mark Farr from Greencastle, Donegal. So we had a great core of local players, and I believe that if we can sort of get that going again at the academy and have a base of local players, then it'll stand us in good stead for when we do add in players from Dublin or across Channel, England or Scotland, that the local players will be able to tell them and show them what it means to play for Derry City. Because I think and you've obviously come up there with a number of teams, players like coming up to Brandywell, they play, and the only time they like that is when they're coming up and they have a chance of winning. For years when it was a very difficult place to come, they didn't like coming up as much. So I suppose Declan and the coaching staff, that's what they're trying to do, is get that mentality back where, we don't want players coming up here and enjoying themselves. We want them dreading coming up here.
Well, that's my experience of it. I loved going up to play there, but hated the results because more often than not we were on the wrong end of them. But this thing cuts off after an hour, Paddy, right? So I'm just going to end it and log back in, if you don't mind, the same thing as what we did at the start. Because I just want to ask you about the international stuff and then a few questions about the teammates and stuff.
No worries, but no problem.
All right, I'll see you in 2 seconds. Thanks, Paddy.
Bye.
So yeah, that's Paddy McCourt. Great bloke. We're just going to continue on, just the part 2, finish it off with the international stuff and some of the questions as well about the different players that he's played with. And to be fair to him, he's played with some players over the years, but he's some player himself. Brano, what do you think of Paddy McCourt? But he's going to log back in here and we'll get it finished off. Yeah, there he is now. But yeah, what a player, Mazza giving me the thumbs up. There you are, Pat. But yeah, this thing cuts off after an hour. I don't know why you do it, Paddy, but I won't. You've been great with your time. I won't keep you too much longer. But just, I suppose, the Northern Ireland stuff I wanted to touch on a little bit. You made your debut back in 2002, I think it was, Paddy, under Sammy McElroy. Was that something, I suppose, at the time, was it contentious at the time, or was it ever something afterwards that might have been contentious?
No, it was not at all. When I get the call, they obviously go up to the first team, and I was so young, I was delighted, and obviously made my debut. Now, the disappointing thing about it, I suppose, was I never had another cap for 7 years, so I didn't get another cap. I was 24, so it was. I suppose at the time, when you make your debut at 17, you probably just think, "Oh, there's going to be hundreds of these now," but it was a long time since I had another cap, so I suppose when I look back at the career I had with Northern Ireland, that's probably the one big disappointment, that I never had more caps within them 7 years.
And then eventually when you did get your next one, and of course Michael O'Neill, who I think the news just broke today that finally he's finishing up, which everybody kind of knew anyway. Obviously he was going to take them into the playoff, but just in terms of playing under him, because we mentioned him a little bit earlier, how did you find him, Paddy, both, I suppose, as a person and a manager, because he's gone on to do some unbelievable things, both with Northern Ireland, and I'm sure he'll do the same in his club career?
I really liked them as both. I sort of knew Michael before he got the Northern Ireland job, sort of just on a social basis. They say hello to. I'd never worked with him or anything. I think Michael's biggest strength, similar to Stephen's, was he knew how to create a team environment. He knew how to get everyone pulling in the one direction, and he had he had that done down to a T with the Northern Ireland squads. Um, I suppose it benefited him in a way that the professionalism had changed as well. My early years playing for Northern Ireland, a big drinking culture. The boys went out a lot after games, probably went out a lot leading up to games, and the professionalism wasn't what it should be. To be blunt
Mm.
about it. And when Michael got the job, he probably was fortunate in a way that a lot of the boys were playing the Premier League at the time. That had sort of changed. Now you would have still maybe had a couple of beers after a game, but if you had a game 4 or 5 days later, there's certainly no late night drinking sessions and stuff like that. And Michael done that in a way without actually coming down and making these rules. There was no rules. It was nearly done. Again, going back to Celtic, like the gym sessions, it was like, boys, if you want a beer, have a beer, but just don't overdo it type thing. And the boys responded to
So
that.
he's given the responsibility to the
Given
players
the
to look after
responsibility
themselves.
of the players, they trusted the players. You the likes of
Yeah.
Steve Davis, who was captain, Johnny Evans, who was probably playing for Man United at the time, going back to when he first got the job. So he knew these boys knew how to prepare for matches, and Michael's biggest strength as well, which I think's really really important when you're managing an international team, is he kept everyone as part of the group. He never would just praise the 11 or the 14 that praised. He would single out people that had maybe trained well that week after a good result and say, you know, he's been outstanding this week in training, or all the boys that didn't play, you have made this possible. He was brilliant at making you feel part of it, even if you didn't set foot on the pitch.
Okay. Which is a skill in itself as well to keep everybody happy and involved. You scored 2 goals. The 2 goals that they're memorable really for Northern Ireland fans. I think people are saying they're 2 of the best goals ever scored. Uh, but the night against the Faroe Islands when he did score those 2 goals, Paddy, that must have been an unbelievable feeling at Park Windsor, and especially the fact that the 2 goals were so good as well.
It was a brilliant feeling. It was obviously my first international goals, and on a night where, as you say, full stadium, it was a qualifier. We ended up winning 4-0. So on a personal note, it was a great night. Um, a second goal was a good goal as well, and I suppose growing up as a child, you always want to play international football, and you always want to try and score a goal. So they do those two things as well. It's something that I'm proud of. But I suppose if I'm going to be honest, I probably should have more caps, and I probably should have
Yeah.
scored more goals as well.
That's the one thing looking at it, like the career that you had, yeah, it only, I suppose, well, when I say only, but you said it yourself, 18 caps. Is that something you look back on, you definitely feel as though you should have a lot more caps?
Definitely, but I suppose when you're seeing the caps, you don't see how many squads that I was actually in, and I suppose that's why Michael was so good in terms of keeping you involved, or keeping you believing that you were involved anyway. Because you know of the 18 caps that I got, I was potentially in 55, 60 squads.
Okay.
And maybe not get on the pitch. Northern Ireland were at the time, certainly before Michael came in, you were always sort of underdog, so you had a certain style of playing, and I probably wouldn't have been in most starting teams. Now, you might have got on the odd game, but I'd certainly been away in 10-day trips with 2 games without seeing any game time. So that's why it was very difficult, I think, for managers to keep people like myself who were maybe not getting a lot of game time, but were spending 10 days away from your family. And I think that's why Michael was exceptional at that, because he made you feel like you always still wanted to go back, and you always seemed to enjoy the trip when you were there. So
Okay.
he had a great camaraderie within the squad, and it never seemed a chore to me. I always enjoyed going with the Northern Ireland squads, especially under Michael.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying in terms of because it could be so easy to get frustrated going away, you're not playing, and especially as you said, 10 days at a time away from your family, different things like that. So that's a massive skill in itself. But I think Michael O'Neill is going to go on to do great things, to be fair. I'm so impressed with him, and even when I met him, I think he'll be a brilliant manager. But just, I suppose, Paddy, I don't want to delay any longer. The questions, just, and the career that you had, you mentioned some of the players, and I know it's probably hard to pick out one. You can name 2 or 3 if you want, but the best player that you played with.
The best player that I played with, I'll probably go for two. One an attacking player and one as a defender. The attacking player was Robbie Keane. Now he was only at Celtic for 5 months, but the 5 months he was there was so evident to see that he was a class above, and I think he scored something like 20 or 21 goals from January to May. Now he was so far ahead of that level, it was frightening, and he was just a top player. And when you watched him in training, his movement, his anticipation, his finishing, he was just a really high level player. So in terms of an attacking sense, definitely him. In a defending sense, it would definitely be Johnny Evans.
Okay.
A real high level player. I think he played maybe 9 years at Man United, which speaks for itself. And he he's now back competing at the top end of the top end of the league with Leicester City. So it was them two would certainly be the standout that I've played with.
So many pick Robbie Keane, and I was fortunate enough, he was at Leeds around the time I was there. And that's the thing that people miss out, Paddy, is you go to a match sometimes or you're watching on telly, they don't see the movement, and just a lot of people think, the goals he gets, some fluky or whatever, but you can't be in the right place at the right time. He was so many times, and his movement is incredible that people don't see that. Sometimes I think, and I've said this a few times down here, I don't think people give him the credit that he deserves. Like, his goal scoring record is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it's up there with, I was only looking the other day in terms of international players, Gabriel Batistuta, I think he's next to, for Argentina. Like, the level and the achievement of what he did over the years is just outrageous.
Well, that's actually surprises me that you're saying that, because, and you'd know better than me because you're involved in the press down there, and maybe he doesn't get the recognition he deserves.
I genuinely don't think he does, Paddy. I honestly don't think people rave about him the way they should.
I always just assumed that he was getting it and he should get it, because, and especially now that he's retired, I could understand that if he was still playing, because it just seems to be the way that you never get the recognition you deserve until you retire. But I would be astonished to hear that, because, as you say, look at his goals per game ratio for a country like the Republic of Ireland. It's absolutely incredible, and it would actually really shock me if I thought that he wasn't held in the highest of esteem down there.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I genuinely don't. Like, as I say, I have so much respect for him as a player, what he did, what he achieved. Unbelievable player. The level, as you said, that he reached, I don't think he does. I really don't. And we had Andy Reid on the other night. He was raving about him. All the players are, even as someone texted in there saying everybody picks Keane in the team. But Johnny Evans was another one that I'm a massive fan of, and I'm a United fan. I thought they got rid of Johnny Evans far too early. And what was it, I suppose? He looks really calm and composed, Paddy, Johnny Evans, when you see him play. Both-footed as well. Very good, right and left. Is he a good lad as well?
Brilliant lad, very smart. Very big into education and all that. I think finished all his exams before he went to Man United, or maybe while he was there, in the youth teams. Good fella, good fun as well at the right times, but exceptionally good footballer. And I'm not a United fan, so it's no real skin on my nose when he did leave. But I certainly, just having an opinion of a football person, I totally agreed with you, because at the time when Van Gaal was moving him on, I certainly looked at Johnny and thought he was still much better than the players that he was keeping, and the players that were on the team. So it was a big shock to me, as I say, just and taking away the fact that he was my friend, I just found it a bad football decision. And again, he went on then to West Brom and done really well. And, there was big talk actually then of Man City actually coming back on and taking him, which wouldn't have surprised me at all, because that's the level I think he should be playing at. And as I say, I'm glad now that he's back with Leicester City, and they've been probably second or third in the Premier League most of the season. So I believe that he is a top 4 Premier League player without a shadow of a doubt.
Good to hear. Just the next one then, Paddy, for you, and I doubt many of these fellas had any joy in trying to tackle you or get the ball off you. I certainly know that from trying to play against you. But the best player that you played against?
The best player I played against is a guy I played for Inter Milan for about 12 or 13 years, Javier Zanetti.
Zanetti, wow.
we played them in a friendly at Celtic Park. I was playing left wing, he was playing right back. And I'm not being funny. I come off a pitch that day and I felt like chucking football. I just felt like the worst. Like honestly, he was trying to go outside him, just put his arm across me. I just felt like a wee, small, tiny, weak boy after I played against him. He
Okay.
was just an incredible player, and he had obviously 14 years playing at Inter Milan. I think it's something like
Ah,
715 or 720 appearances. So, but I have to say, he was one that it just amazes me when you see the likes of Ronaldo and Messi, putting it up to these boys. It shows you the level these boys are at, because I certainly couldn't find a weakness in this boy's game. And he was, I think at the time too, he was about 31 or 32. He was about, he played, he was about 37. So
yeah.
he was just an unbelievable player. He was just so strong, so quick. And I couldn't get any change out of him, that's for sure.
As the boys are texting in, Kashi's texting in, and Kev McLaughlin's Zanetti, what an answer. Yeah, we probably weren't expecting him, but some answer, Paddy.
No, but he's the one. He's the one that sticks in my mind. So it's always an easy question for me, because I have to say I don't think I've ever come off a pitch feeling so useless, so to speak. Because I always quite fancied myself to go up against most players, and I thought I would get a bit of joy out of some of them. Maybe not the whole 90 minutes, but I thought if I bide my time here, I'll get one go at him or I'll get run. But this man, it was just he was just a different level.
So now I know where I went wrong. I wasn't putting my arm across you when you used to glide by me and that. Yeah, Zanetti, that's some answer. We've gone through a few of the managers, and it's only now when we go through them, Paddy, as well, that you realise the level of managers that you have, that you've played under, with obviously Michael O'Neill, Strachan, Neil Lennon, Stephen Kenny. Can you name one, or is it hard to name one because you seem to have obviously got on well in different stages with each of them?
No, I suppose if when you're asked these questions, I think you have to answer them personally, and you know, you could look at records, or so to speak, and the easy answer would be Gordon Strachan. He's managed Scotland, he's managed the Premier League, he's won titles at Celtic, but I made 5 sub appearances under Gordon Strachan, so I don't really see him as being my manager, so to speak. He was the manager of
Okay.
the football club I was at the time. That's all I see it as. Now, in terms of the person I loved working under the most was definitely Stephen Kenny, because one, I played every week. Two, I knew that he really, really wanted me to play every week, and that's why he would put the likes of Michael, who, Michael was a brilliant manager, and I learnt loads from Michael moving forward, but I hardly played, so that's why Stephen would edge him on that front. But two top class managers who I totally agree with you that I think is going to go on and have real top level careers now, especially now that Stephen's got that job with the Republic and Michael's now left Northern Ireland to take a championship job with Stoke. I think obviously who knows what's going to happen in terms of the championship season, but I think if they can get through it without getting relegated, whether it's scrapped now and they start again, I think you'll see Stoke with the other end of the table next year.
Oh, absolutely. He's already had a big impact, and I'm delighted to hear you say Stephen as well, because I've been championing him in terms of, there was a bit of debate last week of people saying, oh, well, now he's the international manager, and people saying in England they won't know who he is. Like, it's absolute nonsense. I think he's going to be a brilliant manager, and I'm actually, for the first time in a long, long time, Paddy, I'm actually really excited about Irish football, like the tripe that we've been watching under Trapattoni, O'Neill, even Mick McCarthy. Like, the football's been horrendous for years. And people argue we don't have the players. I think it's absolute nonsense. Like, there was still good enough players to get more out of what they were getting out of them over the last number of years. And I think he's going to bring a freshness to it. You look at the under-21s, the talent that's coming through there as well. So without putting too much pressure on him, but I'm really excited about Stephen's era and what's to come.
No, I think that's the general feeling, Um, and I have to say, and I'm not sticking up for Mick McCarthy here, but I think it was a strange situation that he found himself in. He was in a job to a certain point, and then a new manager was getting it regardless of what he done. So
Mm.
I know you could potentially, if you wanted to, criticise the style of football, then you could do that. But I think in terms of the results he got at certain points, and he gave some big nights. I was down at the playoff game with Denmark, which was disappointing result, obviously, but it was great to see a packed stadium again, and great to see the country behind the football team again. So I think he galvanised that a bit. Again, as I say, without repeating myself, you could look deeper into the style of play, and people might criticise that, but I think he left Stephen now in a good place, and I think Stephen will come in and put his own stamp on the team, and I do think he'll try and play football a different way than what you've probably had to watch for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The next one, Paddy, your best memory in football.
The best memory of football, the most vivid one that I have anyway, was scoring my first goal at Celtic Park. As I say, it was a dream come true, and I've been very fortunate. They won a lot of medals, cup medals, league medals, but that's the one memory that stands with me. That I just remember it so clearly. I remember the feeling that I had of just sheer relief, sheer a sense of, regardless of whatever happens to me now, I've fulfilled that ambition that I've had since I was a child, and I think that I'll never ever forget that.
Wow. Do you ever, Paddy, say now we're in lockdown, or you're having a quiet night at home, or the odd boring half an hour, do you ever flick on YouTube and just look at some of the goals?
No, I don't actually. I actually never do. I've got a son who's 11, and he would be on, I think, watching him quite a bit. So that makes me proud. But no, I would never. I actually don't like watching myself on TV or on iPads or iPhones or whatever. This is actually even difficult for me to do, even though I'm rambling on here for over an hour. But
You've been great. You've been great with your time.
I prefer watching live football, to be honest. I don't like really looking back. If someone said to me there was a match on tomorrow, I'd be so excited I probably wouldn't sleep at night, because I just love going and watching live football. I think it's the fact that you don't know the outcome. I like watching a game, not knowing what's going to happen. I struggle to watch games back that I was involved in. I watch a lot of games back now, which is work related, because you're obviously looking at opposition. That's different, but I prefer to watch live football where the outcome's not already decided.
You mentioned the young fella watches them there, Paddy. The first time you ever seen him, did he just say, oh, wow, that is just incredible? Like, was he blown away by them?
No, he would never. He doesn't really speak about them, but I know he watches. But he would come down and say he would actually be a bit like, you were very greedy, never passed the ball. That's about as much praise as you would get out of that man.
Okay. Does he play the ball himself? Yeah.
He does. He's not a bad wee player. He's obviously, I suppose, like most 11-year-olds, going through a wee period now where he's not getting much football, and I try and take him out and do a wee bit and pieces. But no, hopefully now when he'll get back to his wee team and get back to his football, because he's really missing it too.
Okay, brilliant, Paddy. I won't delay any longer. The last part, pick a five-a-side of the players that you played with. And to be fair now, I have to say there's been some five-a-sides picked here, so you're up against it.
Is that 5 including the goalkeeper, or is that 6 including the keeper?
No, everybody asked that question. It's totally up to you. You can have 5 outfield players, or if you want to put a goalie and 4 outfield, you're the boss, you're the manager.
Right, well, I'll go with Johnny Evans.
So you're not putting in a goalie?
No, I'm not going to put in a goalie. No, not if I've only got 5 then.
Perfect.
Johnny Evans.
Yeah, good start.
Aaron Hughes.
Okay, Aaron Hughes, yeah.
Yeah, just another, didn't mention in the interview, brilliant professional, brilliant player. So them two would keep the back line pretty solid without having a goalkeeper.
Okay.
And I'll go for Scott Brown just because of what he's achieved in the game. I suppose if I was picking a 5-a-side team that they actually won a 5-a-side tournament, I would probably leave Brownie out. I'd probably play myself instead of him.
Okay.
But, I'll go for Scott Brown, Aidan McGeady, and Robbie Keane. That's the 5 I'll go for. Five top players, and I think Aidan would be a brilliant five-a-side player as well, and then you'd have Robbie Keane up at top.
To be
I'm
fair,
sure
it's a
there's
strong team.
I'm sure there's
You're not
much
putting
better
yourself.
ones than that, the players you've had on, but that's a pretty decent one for me.
Well, Andy Reid picked some team. To be fair, Michael Carrick, Berbatov. He was naming some players. To be fair.
Oh, hey, he played in that really good Spurs team I think was it Redknapp was there at the time, so he had
Yeah, he had Carrick,
top players.
Berbatov, Duff. He named Damien Duff. He had a serious team, but that's a strong team as well. Johnny Evans, Aaron Hughes, Brown, Keane, and McGeady. You're not putting yourself in, no?
Well, as I say, if we were actually going to play a five-a-side tournament, I would take Brownie out and put me in.
Okay.
But I'm going to keep him on just because of the career he's had, and he deserves to be in it. He's top man.
Okay, Paddy, you've been an absolute star. I was mad about you as a player, and you're a great bloke, a great fella, and I appreciate your time. I really do. Thanks very much, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
No, look, thanks for having me on, and brilliant what you're doing as well, Al, because
it's only a bit of crack, Paddy, and
it is, but it's only an hour of my time. This is probably a couple of weeks you're doing it now, and I'm seeing the feedback they're getting, and people are really enjoying watching them. So fair play to you for giving up your time also, and trying to give people just something to look forward to in the evening, I suppose.
That's it. Well, I'm loving it as much, to be honest, as people just chatting to the likes of yourselves. As I said, I was mad about you as a player, hated playing against you, but loved watching you. Even when I was on the same pitch as you, I loved watching you. But no, seriously, and everything that's going on at Derry, best of luck to you as well, and Declan, all the lads, and I'll chat to you soon.
Really appreciate it. Hey, I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks a million, Paddy.
Cheers,
see you, pal.
bye-bye.